The New Prophecy, Warrios Dawn Erin Hunter. Chapter 7. Squirrelpaw curled up beside Shrewpaw and tried not to think about the warm moss-lined den where the apprentices had slept before. At least the small gully where they were lying in gave some shelter from the chilly night breeze. It felt strange to be sleeping apart from Brambleclaw after their long journey together, but at least Shrewpaw seemed happy to have her back. Her paws ached with tiredness, and she closed her eyes, folding her tail over her muzzle for comfort. At first she couldn't stop thinking about the disastrous meeting at the 4 trees, but gradually dreams wove into her waking thoughts and drew her into sleep. She was alone among the trees, and she could smell prey scent, a cold wind breath through the forest. Squirrelpaw lifted her nose and tasted the air. A fat mouse was scuffling among the trees. It was the plumpest piece of prey she had found since returning to the forest, and she swiped her tongue hungrily over her lips. Brambleclaw would be pleased to have a share of this fresh kill. Crouching, Squirrelpaw crept silently towards the unexpected creature. It had its head half buried under an oak leaf and hadn't noticed her. This was going to be an easy catch. Suddenly, rapid paw steps sounded behind her. Terrified, the mouse darted out from under the oak leaf and scuttled away beneath the roots of a tree. Squirrelpaw spun around, bristling with fury. A tortoise-shell cat with gentle amber eyes was standing behind her. "Hello, Squirrelpaw," she mewed. "I have something to show you. You've just ruined the best catch I'm likely to get all day." Squirrelpaw snapped back. She had never seen this cat before, though she carried the scent of ThunderClan. She stopped and put her head to one side. "Who are you anyway?" "I'm Spotted Leaf." Squirrelpaw blinked. She had heard all about the long-dead ThunderClan medicine cat. Why would Spotted Leaf come to her? She stepped forward to touch the she-cat's nose in greeting, but when she went closer, the image faded. Bewildered, Squirrelpaw stared into the trees. She pricked her ears, listening for movement, but heard nothing, and turned to resume her hunt. The scent of prey that hung in the air was too tempting. Perhaps Spotted Leaf only wanted to greet her. Nothing more. Squirrelpaw prowled deeper into the woods, following a path that led toward Snake Rocks. As she crept through the undergrowth, the forest seemed to change, and she didn't recognize the trees around her. Surely she should have reached Snake Rocks by now. Had she taken the wrong path? She quickened her pace until she was racing through the trees she had never seen before. A tiny voice in her mind reminded her that it was just a dream, and she wasn't really lost. She blinked, trying to wake up, but when she opened her eyes, she was still trapped in the strange woods, and her alarm grew until her heart pounded like a woodpecker's beak on bark. She ran on, hoping to find a landmark she recognized, but the forest grew darker and more silent, as if the trees themselves were watching her. There didn't seem to be anything else alive in these woods. No sound of prey, no scent of her clanmates, or any other clan. Spotted Leaf, she called, help me. There was no reply. The trees grew more thickly here, and the shadows between the trunks swallowed her until she could hardly see where she was putting her paws. Don't be frightened. The soft voice seemed to echo from every direction at once. And Squirrelpaw spun around, trying to find where it came from. There was a faint scent of ThunderClan, and then she saw Spotted Leaf's pale pelt glowing among the trees like the distant moon in a mottled sky. I'm lost, Spotted Leaf, she called. No, you're not, Spotted Leaf reassured her gently. Follow me. Panting with relief, Squirrelpaw wound her way through the tree trunks. As she approached, the shadows seemed to draw away, and the forest grew lighter. Although there wasn't any moon that she could see. Follow me, Spotted Leaf murmured. She turned and headed into the trees, running as confidently as she were following an invisible path. Squirrelpaw pelted after her. Spotted Leaf ran like the wind, but Squirrelpaw raced over the ground until she felt as though she were swooping through the trees like a bird. Exhilaration flooded her, so that she hardly noticed the forest becoming familiar once more. Then she recognized a great sycamore, reaching high into the sky, and here, where the snake rocks tumbled, a heap of round, sandy borders, where snakes basked in green leaf, but which offered good prey in cold weather. Spotted Leaf leapt to the top of the rocks, then down the other side and on through the forest. Squirrelpaw scrambled after her quickly. On they went until Squirrelpaw detected the tang of Thunderpath. Suddenly, without warning, Spotted Leaf stopped. Squirrelpaw skidded to a halt, nearly bumping into her, and followed the Medicine Cat's gaze. Ahead of them, every single tree had been stripped away, and the forest floor was churned into mud to the edge of Thunderpath. Wooden toe-lug nests ringed the clearing, and monsters sat hunched and silently nearby. This way, Spotted Leaf mewed. She led Squirrelpaw across the slippery, rutted earth towards the nests. It's so quiet, Squirrelpaw whispered. Oddly, she felt soothed by the eerie quiet, and she followed Spotted Leaf over the open ground without fear. Spotted Leaf stopped beside one of the wooden nests, and Squirrelpaw looked up at it in surprise. What is this place? She mewed. Why have you brought me here? Spotted Leaf twitched her gold and brown striped tail. Look through the hole, she urged. Look at the cages. Cages? The word sounded strange to Spotted Leaf's ears. She noticed a small gap in the wall, about a fox length up. She stretched her forepaws up one side of the nest, her belly brushing the scratchy wood, and peered in. Rows of dens made of cold-looking, shiny web were stacked along the walls. Those must be the cages. Squirrel Paw could see a dark, soft shape huddled in each cage. Cats! Her heart raced as scents flooded her nose. River-clan, wind-clan, rogue. She stared breathlessly through the hole, and then she smelled the warm scent of Thunder-clan. With a jolt of recognition, she saw her sister curled up in one of the cages near the roof of the wooden nest. Leaf Paw, she gasped. She clawed herself upward, thrusting her hind legs, trying to clamber through the hole. You can't get in, Squirrel Paw. Spotted Leaf stood on her hind legs, trying to reach up beside her. This is only a dream, she murmured. But when you wake, Leaf Paw will still be there. Will I be able to rescue her? I hope so. Spotted Leaf answered softly. But how? Squirrel Paw yelled, jumping down to the ground. Stop fidgeting, for StarClan's sake, Shrew Paw muttered. Squirrel Paw's eyes shot open. She was lying in the narrow cleft in stunning rocks. The hollow was dark, and she could only make out the soft shapes of sleeping cats around her. She sat up and stared over the lip of the gully. Outside, the frost glittered on the smooth stone, and beyond that she saw the outlines of leafless trees and black and specky against the sky. What's the matter? Shrew Paw asked sleepily. I know where Leaf Paw is, Squirrel Paw whispered. I have to go and rescue her. Shrew Paw's eyes blinked open. How do you know? Spotted Leaf told me in a dream. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure, Squirrel Paw snapped. Shrew Paw twitched his ears. You can't go disappear without telling any other cat where you're going, he warned. He didn't add again, but Squirrel Paw guessed that what he was thinking. I could wake Firestar up, she mewed. Now that I know where Leaf Paw is, he could send out a rescue party, not in the middle of the night. Shrew Paw pointed out. It's too cold. Besides, it was just a dream. It was more than a dream, Squirrel Paw insisted. But you're not a medicine cat, Shrew Paw argued. No cat's going to go on a rescue mission in the middle of the night because he had a dream. His amber eyes were gentle. They might listen to you in the morning, though. Settle down and go back to sleep. Squirrel Paw sighed. But she knew he was right. She slumped back down again, still seeing the wood and nest filled with cages. Shrew-Paw laid down beside her and rested his tail comfortably on her flank. "We'll find her in the morning," he promised, closing his eyes. His breathing slowed as he drifted into sleep, but Squirrelpaw stayed awake, gazing up at the narrow strip of silver pelt. She could see through the mouth of the gully. A cat from StarClan had visited her to tell her where Leafpaw was. She knew Spotted Leaf had a special bond with her father when he first came to the forest. Could it be that she wanted to help Firestar's daughter because she still loved him? Squirrelpaw opened her eyes and sat up with a start. Bright light streamed into the gully. Through the air was cold. Though the air was cold. Colder still, because all the other apprentices had left. Quickly, she stretched and scrambled out of the crevice. Her dream was still clear in her mind. She had to tell her father so that he could organize a rescue party. Shrew-Paw was washing on a stone slope in front of the den. "Where's Firestar?" Squirrelpaw demanded. "He's out patrolling with Graystripe," Shrew-Paw replied, rubbing at his cheek with his paw. She twitched her tail in frustration. "Why didn't you wake me? You didn't sleep well, remember?" meowed Shrew-Paw. "I thought you could get some extra sleep and join me on a later patrol," Firestar agreed. "Did you tell him about my dream?" Squirrelpaw pricked her ears. "What did he say?" "When he's sending out a patrol. I didn't mention the dream," Shrew-Paw stammered. "I thought you would have forgotten it. It was only a dream after all." Squirrelpaw glared at Shrew-Paw. It was a message from StarClan. "I'm really sorry," he shuffled his paws and stared at the ground. Squirrelpaw let her fur lie flat again. "No, I'm sorry," she sighed. "It's not your fault I overslept." "It's okay," Shrew-Paw shrugged. "Did you really see Leafpaw in your dream?" Squirrelpaw nodded. "And the other cats that were missing from the forest. Or, at least, I definitely smelt WindClan and RiverClan scents. That's amazing." He glanced past her and twitched his whiskers. Looks like there's been some successful hunting already today. That should put Firestar in a good mood, at least." Squirrelpaw turned to see Brambleclaw padding up the slope with the vole in his jaws. He carried it over to where Ferncloud lay in the sunshine, watching her kits play. She accepted Brambleclaw's offering with only a blink of her leaf-colored eyes, as if she didn't have enough strength to thank him. Squirrelpaw noticed with a prick of unease how small Ferncloud's kits were. They looked hardly old enough to leave the nursery, let alone journey all the way to the sun-drowned place by leaf bear kits were usually strong and healthy, ready to face the cruelest season. If Squirrelpaw and Brambleclaw succeeded in persuading the clans to leave the forest, how many cats would never see their new home? She shook her head. Right now she didn't want to go anywhere without rescuing Leafpaw. Brambleclaw! She bounded down the slope toward him. I know where Leafpaw is. StarClan came to me in a dream. The Trollocs have trapped her in a little nest past Snake Rocks. We have to go and rescue her. Brambleclaw pricked his ears. Really? He scanned Sunning Rocks. Have you told Firestar? Is he organizing a rescue party? Squirrelpaw shook her head. He's on patrol. But if you come with me, we could rescue her together. Brambleclaw blinked. Are you mad? Rescue her from a Trollog's nest? We wouldn't stand a chance on our own. Squirrelpaw's paws prickled with frustration. But StarClan must want us to rescue her now, she argued. Why else hasn't spotted Leafpaw before? Leafpaw must be in more danger than ever. Let's wait till Firestar gets back. He'll know what to do. Squirrelpaw couldn't believe her ears. Does that mean you won't help me? It means I won't let you go on such a dangerous mission. Brambleclaw snapped. Squirrelpaw wanted to rake his ears in frustration. You are afraid. Brambleclaw bristled. What if we tried to rescue Leafpaw and got caught ourselves, he pointed out. Who else knows the way through the mountains? Who would lead ThunderClan to their new home? You weren't like this when we were traveling. You agreed to go back and rescue Stormfur. Frustration flashed in his eyes. Yes, and look what happened to Feathertail when we did. But this is my sister. Squirrelpaw thrashed her tail. Why won't you understand? Brambleclaw blinked. I'm only asking you to wait till Firestar gets back. But you won't help me now. Squirrelpaw couldn't keep her desperation out of her voice. Brambleclaw's gaze softened. Let's wait till Firestar returns. He'll send out a patrol. We'd need more warriors. Squirrelpaw couldn't bear to listen any more. I didn't think that of you, of all cats, would let me down, she spat, stalking away into the trees. As she reached the undergrowth, the sound of rushing paw steps made her stop and look around. She hoped it was Brambleclaw coming after her to tell her he had changed his mind, but it was Swirltail. I heard what you were saying, she panted. If StarClan has told you where Leafpaw is, they must want us to rescue her as soon as possible. That's what I thought, Squirrelpaw growled. But Brambleclaw won't help me. I will, Swordtail offered. Grief shadowed her face. I couldn't stop the Trollocs from taking Leafpaw, but I'd do anything to help her now. Do you mean it? Squirrelpaw tried to ignore the twig of jealousy that pricked her belly. Why shouldn't Leafpaw have made friends with another cat while she was away? Of course. Come on then, she yowled. Let's go. She pelted through the forest, wanting to get away before any of the senior warriors spotted her and ordered her to join a hunting patrol, or even worse, overheard them and told Firestar what she was planning. She heard Swordtail pounding after her. The two cats raced past the ravine without even looking down into the abandoned camp and headed for the great sycamore. The monsters were still there, chewing up more and more of the forest. If they weren't careful, they'd tumble right into the ravine and smash themselves into bits on the high stones. Squirrelpaw thought hopefully. Keep low, she warned, as the roaring grew louder. But Swordtail was already ducking down to follow her through the dying bracken. Thank Silverpelt they left us some trees to hide in, she hissed. They scrambled over snake rocks. Squirrelpaw was determined to follow the exact trail Spotted Leaf had shown her in her dream. But she hoped that the weak sun hadn't tempted any snakes to come out to bask. Safely over the rocks, they headed back into the trees towards the Thunder Path. The hateful stench of 12-lug monsters stung her nose. A heartbeat before she heard them roaring up ahead. By the time she reached the edge of the muddy clearing, she was breathing hard, her paws trembling. Fear gripped her from ear tips to tail. Swordtail skidded to a halt beside her and peered out from under a thick bramble bush. What are we going to do now? I'm not sure, Squirrelpaw admitted. The clearing was busy with Trollocs shouting and monsters churning up the ground as they prowled back and forth. It looked nothing like her dream, even though she was sure they had come to the right place. There was no trace of the stillness and silence she had padded confidently through with Spotted Leaf, but the noise and activity made her paws prick with determination. Starklin had brought her here, knowing full well how dangerous it would be. They must have faith in her. Leafpaw's over there. She gestured with her tail to the wooden nest Spotted Leaf had led her to. There was a monster crouched outside the door, grumbling quietly to itself. It was much smaller than the tree-munching monsters, and its round black paws seemed half sunk in the mud. Look, Squirrelpaw hissed suddenly. They've left the door open. She froze as a Trolloc from the nest emerged from the nest carrying a cage. Inside crouched a mangy tabby, its eyes wide with terror. The Trolloc pushed it into its belly. into the belly of the waiting monster. Then went back into the wooden nest and came out with another cage. Squirrelpaw stared in horror at the bundle of fur hunched inside the cage. Leafpaw, without stopping to think, she dashed out of the trees. Leafpaw must have spotted her, because as the Twilog pushed her cage into the monster's belly, she yelled, "Squirrelpaw, get away from here!" Her shriek startled the Twilog, and it turned round, spotting Squirrelpaw at once. With eyes twinkling in triumph, it put down Leafpaw's cage and ran toward her. Squirrelpaw scrambled to a halt, her paws slipping as she tried to bolt back to the safety of the trees. The Twilog chased her with its 4 paws outreached. Its long legs ganged on her. She fought to get a claw hold on the clumsy mud. "StarClan, help me!" Just when her heart was about to burst with fear, Swordtail exploded from the bushes with a vicious snarl. She rushed at the Twilog, raking her claws across its grasping paws until it howled with pain. Then she grasped Swordtail's scruff in her teeth and hauled her towards the trees. Squirrelpaw found her footing with a gasp, and Swordtail released her. Together the 2 cats sped back into the woods. When they reached the safety of the brambles, Squirrelpaw skidded to a standstill. "Keep running," Swordtail hissed. "They won't give up that easily." She nudged Squirrelpaw, pushing her further into the clumps of brambles. Squirrelpaw stumbled as the thorns scraped her fur. "What about Leafpaw?" "Do you want to join her?" Swordtail spat. "Keep running." Too terrified to think straight, Squirrelpaw obeyed and raced after the warrior into the trees. Only when they had ran all the way to Snake Rocks did Swordtail slow down, her flanks heaving. Squirrelpaw stood beside her, too shocked to speak. "What in StarClan's name is going on?" Graystripe's deep meow echoed off the rocks as he emerged from the bracken with Thornclaw and Rain Whisker close behind him. The ThunderClan deputy stared at the 2 trembling cats. "What's wrong with you? You look like you've just seen Tigerstar's ghost." "It's Leafpaw," Squirrelpaw cried. "We found her, but Trollocs are putting her inside a monster's belly. They're going to take her away. I know they are." Graystripe narrowed his eyes and opened his mouth to speak, then stopped and glanced at the bushes behind him. "Brambleclaw, is that you?" "Yes." The branches quivered as Brambleclaw stepped out. "I'm looking for Squirrelpaw." He blinked when he spotted her, standing beside Swordtail. "Are you okay?" "I found Leafpaw," Squirrelpaw hissed. "The Trollocs are going to take her away. We have to rescue her now, or I'll never find her again." Graystripe glanced at Brambleclaw, then at Rain Whisker and Thornclaw. The ThunderClan warriors stood with their chins raised high and flexed their powerful shoulders. "We can't let these Twillogs take our cats. If there is anything we can do to stop them," growled Rain Whisker. "We should not give up without a fight," Thornclaw agreed. Their meaning was clear. This was still their forest. They may not have been able to protect it against all the Trollocs and their monsters, but this is one battle they could take on. Greystripe narrowed his amber eyes at Squirrelpaw. "Very well," he meowed. "Show us where she is." "This way," she panted. She leaped back over Snake Rocks, Swordtail close behind. Greystripe, Thornclaw, Rainwhisker, and Brambleclaw followed. Hearing their paw steps, Squirrelpaw felt a surge of confidence. With 5 Thunders clan warriors at her side, she must be able to rescue her sister. When they reached the bramble thicket at the edge of the trees, Greystripe hissed for the cats to stop. "Stay low," he commanded. To Squirrelpaw's relief, the small monster was still waiting outside the wooden nest. The Trolloc was carrying out more cages to stow in its belly. "Leaf Paw's already inside," she whispered. "Right," muttered Greystripe. "Thornclaw, you and I will attack the Trolloc. We've got to keep him distracted while Swordtail, Brambleclaw, and Rainwhisker let the other cats out." "What about me?" Squirrelpaw asked. "You stay here as lookout," Greystripe ordered curtly. "Tell us if more Trollocs come." Squirrelpaw stared at him in shock. "But," she began, but Greystripe ignored her. "Most of them must be in the monster by now." He went on. "Brambleclaw and Swordtail, I want you to climb inside and start getting the cats out. Rainwhisker, you go into the nest and help any that are left." Squirrelpaw glared at Greystripe. "I'm getting my sister out of that monster." The Grey Deputy stared back at her for a long moment, and Squirrelpaw felt as if she'd forgotten how to breathe. "Very well," Greystripe agreed at last. "But if anything goes wrong, get back to the trees as fast as you can." Squirrelpaw nodded. When she glanced at Brambleclaw, his eyes were shadowed with worry. "I faced greater danger than this on the journey to the sun-drowned place." She wanted to tell him, "Stop treating me like a kit." "Right," Greystripe meowed, turning back to watch the monster. "The Trolloc going to fetch another. We'll be ready to take it by surprise when it comes out." He dashed from the trees, keeping low. As he raced over the mud, Thornclaw, Swordtail, Rainwhisker, and Brambleclaw ducked out from under the brambles and ran across the churned earth beneath him. Squirrelpaw scrambled after them, feeling the mud stuck at her paws, clinging to the fur on her belly. With a few tail links from the open door, Greystripe hissed, "Wait!" The cats halted in the sticky mud. The Trolloc stepped out of the wooden nest. It was carrying another cage, and did not see the 6 cats waiting in ambush. "Now!" Greystripe screeched, and leapt at the Trolloc. He sank his claws into its hind leg. The Trolloc dropped the cage. The cage cracked open like a splintering branch. Squirrelpaw stared in astonishment, recognizing the grey pelt inside. It was Missyfoot. The River Clan warrior leapt out and hurled herself at the Trolloc's other leg, hissing in rage. Thornclaw joined the attack, gripping at the Trolloc as though he were clawing his way up a tree. The Trolloc bellowed in agony and hopped around with a cat clinging to each leg. "Come on, Squirrelpaw!" Brambleclaw yelled. He jumped into the belly of the monster. Swirltail behind him. Squirrelpaw heard blood whirring in her ears as she watched Rainwhisker slip into the nest. She hoped there wasn't another Trolloc waiting inside. Taking a breath, she hauled herself into the monster with Brambleclaw and Swirltail. Rows of cages were lines in the gloom. The fear of scent was overpowering, and for a moment Squirrelpaw froze. How in StarClan's name are they going to rescue all these cats? Then she saw Leafpaw press against the mesh of her cage. "Squirrelpaw, over here!" she wailed. "I'm coming!" Squirrelpaw streaked over to her and used her teeth to tug at the front of the cage. "It's loosening," she hissed as the catch began to tear away like the wing of a pigeon. She pulled as hard as she could until the cage sprang open and sent Squirrelpaw toppling onto the floor of the monster's belly. Leafpaw leapt down quickly and rubbed her muzzle against her sister's. "Is it really you?" she breathed. "Spotted Leaf told me where you were," Squirrelpaw gasped, scrambling to her paws. Leafpaw blinked, then shook herself. "Tell me everything later. Come on, we've got to get all these cats out." She raced to the nearest cage and began pulling at the catch. Squirrelpaw turned to another and struggled until she thought she'd be spitting out broken teeth. But the catch eventually came free, and a matted rogue Tom leapt out without a word. He fled from the monster and sprinted towards the woods. "You're welcome," Squirrelpaw muttered before starting on the next cage. Unfamiliar cats leapt around her as Brambleclaw, Swirltail, and Leafpaw worked on cages one after another, and the cages mostly contained rogues who were gone as soon as their doors were open. Then Squirrelpaw felt a cat pushed at her side, heading deeper into the monster's belly, and saw Missyfoot barging past. The River Clan warrior made straight for the cage at the end. "Sasha!" Missyfoot yelled as she began scraping at the cage with her claws. "This way works better," Squirrelpaw told her, nudging her out of the way to use her teeth. Instantly the catch opened and Sasha sprang out. "Get out of here," Missyfoot urged. Sasha hesitated, looking around at the cages that were still closed. "We'll deal with these," Missyfoot promised. Sasha's fur was standing on end, and her blue eyes were huge with fear. She was shaking so much that she wouldn't be able to open the cages even if she tried. At last she nodded and leapt from the monsters. Only a few cages still held cats. Leaf Paw scanned inside the monster and called to Squirrel Paw. Cloudtail and Brightheart are still in the hut. Go and help free them. I've got to let Cody out. Who's Cody? Squirrel Paw asked. I'll tell you later. Quick, get Brightheart and Cloudtail. Squirrel Paw leapt out of the monster's belly and raced towards the wooden nest. Her heart lurched when she saw that another Trolloc had arrived to help. Finally, Thornclaw finally lost his grip on the first Trolloc. The ThunderClan warrior landed heavily in the mud, but he scrambled to his paws and raced back to rejoin Graystripe in the attack. As Squirrelpaw dashed into the nest, she was almost shocked by a brown tabby running out. She swerved quickly as the scraggly Tom hurtled past her, and then she scanned the nest, searching for Cloudtail and Brightheart. Brightheart was already free. He was helping Rainwhisker scrape at Brightheart's catch. We can't open it, Cloudtail yowled, his voice raising in panic. Try your teeth, called Squirrelpaw. Cloudtail bit down hard, and Squirrelpaw saw him trembling with effort as he pulled, but it still would not open. More Trolloc voices sounded outside. Graystripe raced into the nest. There are too many Trollocs, he yelled. We have to get out of here. He pushed Squirrelpaw toward the door. Get back to the trees. But Brightheart is still trapped. I'll take care of her, Graystripe promised, pushing Squirrelpaw with his nose. Just get out of here. He leapt over to where Rainwhisker and Cloudtail were still tugging at Brightheart's catch and shoved them out of the way. Get to the trees now. Cloudtail didn't move, but stood stiff-legged, staring at horror at Brightheart's cage. Her panic-stricken face was pressed against the mesh. Come on, Rainwhisker hissed at him, and bundled the white warrior toward the door. Squirrelpaw glanced over her shoulder at Graystripe as he grabbed the stiff catch in his powerful jaws, then followed the others out of the nest. As she emerged, a Trolloc lunged for her. She spun around and bolted along the side of the nest. There were Trollocs everywhere, howling in rage. She spotted Swirltail and Rainwhisker making for the trees and pelted after them. Thrusting her way into the tangle of brambles, Rainwhisker kept threading into the forest, but Cloudtail skidded to a halt, turning back to watch what was happening outside the nest. Swirltail crouched beside him and peered across the clearing. Leafpaw and a tabby she didn't recognize were running toward them. Hurry! She screeched. A Trolloc was gaining on them, its huge paw taking giant strides across the mud as Squirrelpaw watched, willing the cats to outrun the Trollocs. The white and ginger pelt of Bright Heart caught her eye in the doorway of the nest. Graystripe had opened her cage. The thunder-clenched cat hurtled toward the trees, the scar on her face half hidden by splatters of mud. She brushed past the Twilug that was chasing Leaf Paw, unbalancing him in the slippery mud so that he fell over with a roar. Leaf Paw and the tabby reached the safety of the bushes and scrambled among the thorns. "I can't believe you saved us," panted the tabby. Squirrelpaw was already rubbing her nose along Leafpaw's cheek, breathing in her familiar scent. "I'm sorry we were nearly too late," she whispered. "I thought I'd never see you again." Leafpaw was panting hard. "Where's Brambleclaw?" Squirrelpaw felt a jolt of alarm and scented the air. She smelled the fresh fear scent from Thornclaw and Swordtail. Then she recognized a clump of dark tabby fur snug on a thorn. The blood was still wet where it had torn from its pelt. She trembled with relief. If Brambleclaw had gotten this far, he must have escaped. "He's okay," she mewed. "Did Missy Foot get out?" Once the last cat was free, she started heading for the trees. Leafpaw told her. "Then everyone escaped." Squirrelpaw breathed in relief. As she spoke, Brightheart crashed into the brambles, her eyes huge with terror. "Graystripe," she gasped. "Where is he?" Squirrelpaw demanded. Cloudtail nearly bowled at Brightheart over as he leapt toward her. "I shouldn't have left you," he cried, licking her all over her ravaged face. "Where's Graystripe?" Squirrelpaw repeated. "Twilugs," panted Brightheart, pulling away from Cloudtail. Squirrelpaw's heart jumped to her throat. "What do you mean?" "One of them grabbed him." She peered out from the undergrowth. A Twilug was closing the belly of the monster, hissing and spitting at the other Twilugs who were staring widely around the clearing. It climbed into the forest. The monster roared into life, spraying mud beneath each of its flat black paws, and began pulling away. Then she saw something that made her stomach flip over. A lone face appeared from inside the monster. She had known since she was a kid. It gazed desperately at the trees as the monster picked up speed and raced away. "Graystripe!" Squirrelpaw gasped.